We're back with Craig. Craig, now we can relax just a little bit more. And you and I have talked a little bit about some of the things that have happened to you with your work in the midst of COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at what's taking place, because my understanding listening to you, you couldn't go into patients' rooms or you could choose not to go.
Yes, I was going into rooms for a while
Okay.
until my wife chewed me out and my boss chewed me out. And
Uh,
the other chaplains didn't think, because we only have one chaplain per hospital.
okay.
That's it. And a real close friend of mine who's also one of the chaplains, he says, if you get sick with COVID, we have to cover your hospital and our hospital. So please just stay out of the rooms. And I was, okay, but my wife was,
Yeah.
she gave me an order.
Yeah, I hear it.
so,
Yeah. So
so
how
I
So how did you, in the midst of COVID, when you can't, family isn't there, you're not in the room with the patients, I would assume you're doing a lot of making love real for people, and those people being the staff, those that work at
oh
the
yeah,
hospital. Did you find that
yeah.
to be your main focus?
Well, that's always a primary focus.
Ah,
I'm very active in what's called caring for the caregiver.
okay.
Our boss is a doctor, a medical doctor. We've never had a chaplain as a boss, but she is the head of patient experience and empathy training and working a lot with the staff. And I've done a lot of things with her as far as being part of the empathy training for the resident doctors and the new nurses. And I've been part of that. She's always invited me to participate. And that is just beautiful. But caring for the caregiver is one of my primary duties, along with caring for the patient and their families.
So how do
I
you do,
would say they get equal time.
yeah, how do you do that in tangible ways? I know earlier you had mentioned that you spend a lot of time listening to the patient. What about when it comes to the caregiver? How does that work?
Well, they're a tougher crowd. They're pretty. Nurses and doctors are pretty. They've seen everything, and it takes a lot to break through that.
Mm,
So a lot of times it's really not in conversations. They rarely open up to you. And so you have to offer other ways. Um, I started this, it's called Tea for the Soul at the hospital about 3 years ago. And I order it, the hospital pays for it. And basically, I have a cart. And in the summertime, like right now, I just did this yesterday. They put iced tea, big pitcher of iced tea, big pitcher of lemonade, and a bunch of scones. And I have my lavender oil I put on the cart. I have my meditation music, and I go down the hallway and I stop and try to see as many staff as possible. All the nursing stations. I go in the pharmacy. I go in the lab. I go in the PACU. I go in the pre-op, wherever they'll let me. And I just hand out scones and serve them iced tea and lemonade. And there's usually a short conversation. And it's things like that that's tangible, non-threatening, that really allows them to start opening up. And I've gotten to know a lot of people on a deeper level, especially staff members, through that.
mm.
And then today we have had our once a month uh, celebration of remembrance. It's not really memorial, but it's strictly for the staff of patients who had passed away the previous month. And
Wow.
so I do it with the patient experience officer. She did stuff, but I read a couple prayers that are geared towards medical staff, and I we read the names of each patient. Uh, we invite the staff members to get candles and then turn them on. And then at the end, they place them on the table. We invite them to share stories, but
Mm.
that's just for them. This is their time, just at least, without really becoming emotional, at least in their mind, acknowledge what they're doing, because we're really acknowledging their participation with these patients on an intimate level. And some of it turns out great and some of it doesn't. But it just
Wow.
gives them a place to reflect, maybe grieve a little bit. So that's another thing we do.
So it sounds like by being able to make these connections through iced tea, lemonade, and scones, that may open them to at least thinking about going to a future experience like what you just described.
Yes, because they know me, and I
Yeah.
usually have some short dialogue, and then I invite him to that. I invite him to my office all the time. I says, you can stop in if the door's open, come on in, and we'll sit down. And if you want some tea, I got tea, and we'll just have a chat, and I'll listen to you. I'll cry with you, whatever you need. We just always invite them. That's a big thing with leadership, is taking care of the staff, especially during COVID.
Yeah.
Now, COVID was much more difficult because the COVID units, you always put the patients in certain units,
Right.
and then the nurses in the COVID units wouldn't leave the unit. They eat their lunch there, they do everything there. And because they don't want to take off all their gear and then put everything on and take it off. So I would go into their break room and sit there and have them come in and just ask how they're doing, and I bring them treats and we talk, and sometimes they would open up. I mean, there's sometimes it got pretty intense just because there's no family with the patient that usually calms them. They're alone, they're frustrated, everything's done over the phone. I'm talking to families on the phone, I'm talking to patients on the phone. But we just kind of found workarounds to do the best we could. But the staff was a very primary focus.
Right.
And in the summer, one of our chaplains took 8 weeks off. So down at the Osborne Hospital, which has the largest ICU. So for 8 weeks, July and August, basically, I covered two hospitals. So it was pretty
Where are
intense
you
for me
thin?
for a while.
Yeah. So, and that's a perfect way for me to ask you this next question. And
Yes,
that is, you talked about your job is to care for the caregiver,
yes,
but you're a caregiver.
yes.
So
I see
how,
patients
yeah, but
in
you're,
front.
but as a caregiver, so what do you do to care for yourself? And and in your answer, what do you do that you could recommend to other people to care for themselves spiritually so that when they go out and interact with other people, they're operating from a sense of wholeness? So to the degree you're comfortable, can you share that?
Well, I have a lot of different avenues. First of all of the chaplains talk with each other, and nobody gets what you're going through like another chaplain, and they just understand it. So if one of us is having a really difficult time, they'll call one of the
Okay.
others, and we'll just talk them down and everything. And then I have some really close Christian friends and some pastors that I know, and I'll give them a call. But I gotta admit, one of my main resources, I'm a sober member of AA,
Ah,
and go to an AA meeting, and what you do is you share from the heart. You talk about yourself and your day. You share your experience, strength, and hope, and then afterwards I go out and I can feel. I've been in AA a long time, and I just feel so comfortable there with the people in AA because we all are able to listen. We all are able to take our self inventory, and that's the place that probably rejuvenates me the most, to be honest with you.
wow. So I would assume you're still practicing those spiritual steps.
Yeah,
And so that would be, and my understanding is there are ways for those who may not be directly involved with AA or be an alcoholic that they can still practice. So would you use those steps as a recommendation for people's own spiritual life?
well, yeah. I mean, they're second nature to me. I just do them
Okay.
without thinking. You know, I mean, daily prayer and meditation. When you're wrong, promptly admitted it. Constantly do self inventory.
Wow.
I mean that's just second nature after a while, and so much of it is biblical. So it's not they weren't
Right.
making anything up when they
Right.
started a program. The big difference is was the first step. You have to hit a bottom before you get to AA.
Right.
you know.
But
So
you're saying that you're saying we could use these steps without having necessarily been hitting the bottom as an alcoholic, but we can still use these steps in our own spiritual, just living in life.
well, I would recommend it. You know, I mean, they're great steps. They're just basic principles that apply. You know, you just admit when you're powerless and your
Mm,
life's unmanageable, and you believe that there's a power greater than you. You know, I started as a power greater than alcohol. Okay, what's that? Because alcohol is more powerful than me, man.
wow.
Yeah. And then you take your inventory, you look at yourself, and then you admit it and you share that. All right. Then you get some remorse and then forgiveness. And the amends are so tough, but they're the most worthwhile. I cannot tell you, especially in the beginning when I had some serious amends to make. I just I just thought it was not going to be good. 90% of the amends turned out wonderfully.
Mm,
And then 10% turned out horribly. But it's great, you know,
yeah.
it's great spiritual principles.
Yeah.
And I think what I like about AA is everybody's done the inventory and they're very, they don't judge. And another thing I like about it is God as you understand God. I've always been comfortable with that having a spirit, you know,
Yes.
always. You
Yeah.
know, yeah, I have a seminary degree. I went to Fuller Theological Seminary, and I can get into doctrine and have debates. But at the end of the day, it's God as you understand God, and I'm not going to tell you how to understand God.
Yeah. Because who of us know for sure we got it right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And that my AA helped me in my chaplaincy because I really am not big on evangelizing. I think it's attraction rather than promotion. I
Mm,
think if the spirit is with you, people are attracted to that and they start asking questions.
wow. I really appreciate those insights. And I've dabbled a little bit in those 12 steps myself, as far as just as a spiritual practice. And
Mm-hmm.
so I love what you're saying, that you find your friends, colleagues, and these spiritual practices as a way of kind of rejuvenating you, making you whole to go out and do the work that you do. And I think that's a wonderful
Mm-hmm.
blend.
It is the core thing with the steps that you have to know is when you take somebody else through the steps,
Mm,
you have to do them yourself. So if I'm sponsoring, and I've sponsored a lot of guys, and I take them to the steps and they're being totally honest about something, I'm like, oh, am I being that honest? Holy, it makes you look. But that's really taking somebody through the steps is where the magic happens.
man, that's life.
Yeah,
That's life.
yeah.
Well, Craig, thank you so much for your time. And I appreciate all you do, for not only the hospital, but for those in your AA group and for
Mhm.
those in the larger community. Um, we need more Craig Myers. So
All right.
I appreciate it.
Well,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Take
Bye
care.
bye.